because it is related to everybody's everyday life. Yeah. So as we know, new technologies such as internet, social media, mobile, Internet of Things, AR, VR, and artificial intelligence has forever changed our life, the way we make consumption and purchase decisions. It does not only require companies to transform, to adapt to the digital economy, but also create a vast amount of opportunities for business innovation. All those changes has immediate impact on retail landscape. It also create new demand for sustainability. So let's take 1 minute to imagine. Suppose a customer, John, he wants to have a bottle of drink. And maybe 20 years ago, the only choice he might have is to drive 10 miles away to Walmart to get a bottle of beer. But today, when Emily is walking on the street, she wants a bottle of beer. What she's going to do first? She's going to take out her mobile phone and open an app and look at where she can get the bottle of beer, Heineken, and she's going to find out what her fellow customers are saying, consumers review. And then she found she has 3 options. First one is to find a designated retailer of Heineken. Second is to go to Walmart, which is nearby. Third option is to buy from Amazon or maybe Tmall, which just went global. And then she did a study. She said, no, I'm going to take the 4th option because she happens to be an environmentalist. And she found a restaurant who is a partner of a recycle company. Then she went to the shopping mall to get the beer. So long time ago, the world is organized by product, but today it's customer-centric. So today it's my great pleasure to work with 5 amazing panelists to talk about the topic, future consumption. So to my left, so we have Jean-François Van Boxmeer, who is the chairman of the executive board and CEO of Heineken. And then next we have Doug McMillan, who is the president and CEO of Walmart. And next we have Alain Bonjani, who is the CEO of Majid Al Futtaim Holding, United Arab Emirates. And next we have Daniel Zhang, who is the CEO of Alibaba Holdings. And last but not least, Tom Zaki, who is the founder and CEO of TerraCycle. Welcome to the session. Yeah. So to start our session, may I invite our speakers to share with us 1 or 2 new consumption trends, especially those observed in your industry. May I suggest we take the order of the circular economy? So we start from manufacture, and then we go through the 3 types of retailers. And then we're going to end with the recycling industry, which is going to close the circular economy.
I think the good news, Sun, is that you made a pretty good summary of the situation that we are facing. And it is true that technology has changed a lot to what it offered to consumers. And I think your example of the beer is a very true one. But bear in mind that people will still go to the pub and still go to the shop. So I don't think that it will revolution the whole world of manufacturing, but technology will revolutionize the world of manufacturing in many, many ways, not only in how you sell your products, but also how you tell your stories, how you do your marketing, how you create relationship and create partnerships, how you deal with your customers, how you deal with governments, and finally also how you manufacture. The digitalization of the economy has really changed a lot in the ways how we work. And if I consider our company over the last 20 years, what we do today is absolutely not the way we did it 20 years ago. We still bring you a bottle of beer.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Maybe break it into 2 areas. The first one is how people are shopping and finding items, as you alluded to, and the second one is what they're buying. The more dramatic change is happening as it relates to how they are buying, how they get information, how they do everything as it relates to transacting that product. And ultimately, what she is looking for and he is looking for is saving time. You know, merchandising is kind of broken into price, assortment, and service. price is more transparent, assortment is ubiquitous, and service has a tremendous amount of innovation happening in it. It's really a very exciting time to be in retail and an exciting time to be in business. So I'd say there's even more dramatic change related to how. On the what side, people ultimately want to trust. They want to trust the product they buy. They want to trust who they buy it from, which leads to transparency. And ultimately, I think the customer wants to know that what they're buying is good for their family, good for their community, good for the broader world. So social and environmental aspects are going to be increasingly important in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm very happy that Emily ended up in the mall. She made the right choice. And I think your example is actually, quite insightful, because in reality, I also agree that the future of consumption and how the retail business is going is very experiential. So Emily wanted to actually, at the end of the day, not just buy it, but actually wanted to experience it, wanted to live an experience. And I think this is something that we're seeing more and more. Consumers want to experience. The product is important, yes, and I agree. It is actually, the offer is ubiquitous, the price is transparent. But at the end of the day, what matters the most actually the experience. And the experience matters today as much as the product and the price. So having the product, having the price is not enough. The experience is extremely important. And the consumers want more and more the convenience and the seamlessness of the journey. So being fully digital online and having the ability to either browse or buy, or be in the mall and buy, or go to and be environmentally friendly and having a sustainable approach to retail is extremely important. And customers are more and more voting in that direction. So I think that there is no one answer where things are going. Things are going in multiple directions, but they all move into one direction, which is the customer. At the end of the day, it's about the customer and what the customer wants, not what we think that the customer should want, or what we think the customer need. Customers want experience, and they want it the way they want it, at the price that they think is actually the right price for it, not because of the value, but because for what it's worth for them. And I think experiential retailing is becoming more and more important, and the seamlessness of the journey is extremely important. Having the ability to move from one word to another that are becoming more and more, in reality, totally integrated, between the online and the offline one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think data technology is now fundamentally changing the way of doing business, changing the way selling products. And from consumer perspective, like your example, Emily may change her way to buy a bottle of beer or buy apparel, buy anything. But I would say, actually, looking ahead, I would say data technology today is so far changing mainly in the sales side and the way of sales, the way of marketing. Today, every consumer company talking about digital marketing, talk about digital sales. But I think looking ahead, data technology will change more on the supply side, and because we can get the insight, real-time consumer data, get the insight of what customer wants. So a manufacturer, consumer brand can react promptly to give the real to meet the real demand and of the consumers at the right location, at the right in a specific demand. So I think more and more, and we will talk. Actually, we talk about the fourth industrial revolution. We talk about IoT. We talk about everything, but all of these things are based on data. So as long as we have the data, and we can change the way of the entire business.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
I think what's really interesting now, especially as we're seeing such huge emergence of the middle class wanting to buy things and wanting it at the right price and these great products, is people really want purpose in a very big way. That doesn't mean that we're going to go off grid, live in tiny houses. I think we fantasize about these things. So there's huge discussion on them, relatively little action towards them, but people crave to be involved in somehow, be involved in manufacturing. 100 years ago, when you would buy soap, you would meet the process. If you bought a t-shirt, you'd meet the tailor. Today, we're divorced from the entire supply chain, and I think people are craving desperately to somehow be involved, not as consumers. I think consumerism and being a consumer is getting sort of a bad name. You know, in the 1950s, advertising around disposable packaging was, disposable diningware was, you don't have to wash dishes, just take the whole thing and throw it out. And that was an acceptable communication. Today, people still want the convenience, but want to feel purpose versus that they're contributing to some great negative, and especially since we're living in an environmental century. I think the retailers, the manufacturers, whether it's online or whether it's brick and mortar, are going to win tremendously if they can integrate a little purpose and a little smile to the customer and not just making them feel like raw consumers that are here to create transactions.
Okay, thanks for the great insights. So yeah, those are wonderful. So now we see that consumers are changing, so in a big way. Now, what do traditional consumption companies do? What do they need to do to adapt and transform in this digital economy? So maybe we start from Henneken. Yeah, because the manufacturer is the most fundamental for this economy. As a traditional manufacturer of global brand, how to take the challenges and make them opportunities?
I think, you have to apply common sense here.
Okay.
And if you remain consumer-centric in all what you do, it basically says that you listen to the people you serve. On the one hand, as a manufacturer, you are the tailor of your example. So you have a craft, which you have had for many, many years. You're proud of that craft. You work with a lot of people, bringing that craft to the world. And then you sell it to people, and they react to what you propose. And I think it's important, especially for larger company, to be in connection with the people who buy. Whether that is going online or whether that is going through traditional ways is irrelevant. But the way that today you can do it online, it speeds up the transactional amount of feedback that the manufacturer receives on what he's doing. And I do agree that what changed in the society, and certainly in the Western world, when people get a little bit more wealthy, they will go after purpose. And they don't want to be seen as consumers of your product. They want to be seen as citizens. And they want to have a voice and an opinion. And so you don't have to kind of infantilize your customers or your clients, your consumers. I think it's in an attitude of companies that you find a way how to react and adapt to the changing consumer. But make no mistake, if you're an international company, you operate in many parts of the globe, the tendency is also to look at through a very Western lens. And we should be aware that technology is made available in the whole world, but cultural biases are different, but also aspirational levels of people are different. I'm not so sure that that desire that is today very present in the Western world, that we don't have to possess a car anymore, that we can share a car, whether that is true in some parts of Asia or Latin America, or let alone in Africa. I think we have to be very careful to apply judgments that we observe in some societies, in all societies. And hence I come back to my first point. For companies to thrive and to develop, they have to listen.
Yeah, very important. Yeah. So, Doug, I use Walmart as a great example in my class to tell students how a traditional retailer successfully transformed to be the second largest online retailer in the United States. So what are the recipes for success?
We have a long way to go.
I know.
We gave some others a head start. We're trying to catch up. We're having to change how we think and how we work, and in some cases change the talent composition of the company and become more of a digital enterprise. And we believe that many of the things that we've done in the past are still relevant in the future. We have some physical assets that will matter. And most importantly, we have a culture and a team. Humanity is still going to matter. We've got 2.3 million associates around the world, about 1.6 million in the United States. And we want each and every one of them to be customer advocates and to carry our values forward to the customer and differentiate us as it relates to humanity. But we have to also build technology into the company even more than ever before and become more of a digital enterprise. And that requires different ways of working. We've been educating our leadership team on different ways of thinking and working and literally trying to transform from the inside out. Because the success that we have in the future and our sheer survival over time are going to be driven by our ability to change from within, not what's happening in the external environment exclusively.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I know there are a lot to talk about, yeah. So, but Elaine, e-commerce is challenging the concept of shopping malls. Yeah, but still we observe in Dubai at least, we have bigger and more upscale shopping malls popping up here and there in Dubai and somewhere else. So what are the driving forces behind the booming of those new shopping malls?
It's experience. And I think that, I agree with Jean-François, we cannot take one trend somewhere and apply it elsewhere because of local specificities. This being said, I think that what is actually threatening, what e-commerce is threatening is shopping in general, in the way we shop, not how much we shop or whatever. And the reality is shopping malls were created for a purpose. And in the past 20, 30 years, in a lot of developed markets, shopping malls were actually, the shopping process was sanitized. And it became actually more a process as efficient as possible to save time, to actually get to the product that you want at the best price possible, at the fastest way possible. And there was no experience anymore. So if you can buy it online, why would you go to a shopping center? What Dubai has done, what we have done, for example, in Dubai and in some other countries as well, is actually build shopping malls around experience and around the customer, not just around the sanitized process that is cost effective. And I know that a lot of our peers from more developed countries come and say, what are you doing? How do you do that? How can you do it? Because the mindset is conditioned towards efficiency. Efficiency, it translates into cost savings and making sure that we can actually make money in economies that are growing at I would say, 2-3% at best. So the reality is the whole shopping experience became more a chore than actually a pleasure. What we have done is that we have built shopping centers around the customer, around the experience, around F&B, around making sure, around leisure entertainment, and also making sure that you have always the best concepts and the best brands being displayed to the customer in the best way and in the most convenient thing. So today, if you look at most of the developed markets, you see innovation is have a valet parking in the mall or have some casual dining in the mall or cinema. I mean, this has been there now for 20, 25 years. So it is a totally different approach to shopping. And we see that today. E-commerce is definitely growing in our part of the world. So I'm talking about the more emerging markets. If you look at the MENA region, it's still about 2 to 3%, but it is growing quite fast. But what's more important in our part of the world is the fact that 2/3 of the customers, before they actually shop in a store, in a shopping center, they actually browse online and decide based on what they see online. So this click and mortar concept is going to become more and more present, and we see it. Why? Because of the experience that continues to pull. We're talking about the humanity, we're talking about the individual, we're talking about the person behind the shopper that is not just a consumer. This is not just a point of data, but actually is much more than that. But what we're doing is also we're trying to invest this data. We're trying to be as nimble, as agile as possible in order to actually do better business in the brick and mortar as well as in the online space. And I think experience is the future, and we today see the future in Dubai, in the shopping centers that we have and that others have that are all about experience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's wonderful. Now, another interesting question to ask Tom is that consumers want convenience and price, like everybody was saying here. But some of the ideas of recycling actually means that inconvenience and expensive or higher prices. How do you reconcile these tensions?
It's a very interesting question, and it's important to take a step back here. You know, if we look at recycling, everything in the world will be waste one day. There's no exception, just time. some things are recyclable because they're economically positive to do so. They're less in the world now because of oil prices going down. And everything else is not recycled just because it's not profitable to do so. So there's an economic inconvenience to recycle most objects, from the pen you're holding to a toothbrush. But there's also a consumer inconvenience, as you said. You have to then not just simply throw it out. And I think the way to untap this is to think about this concept we mentioned earlier of making people feel purposeful, that they're somehow connected by recycling, and especially telling them what something is going to turn into, making them they feel that they're a part of that. And this goes to what you were mentioning, is that it's an experience question. It's not just simply about buy, and show up as a data point on an Excel sheet and this is what you're worth, but that you somehow feel connected. And I think that connection, if you do it properly, you'll be rewarded in the normal aspect, which is you'll increase, sell more goods, sell them maybe at a higher price, better margin, whatever that may be. And so there's this innate potential perception of challenge, like if retailers, for example, ask consumers to bring back products to their stores, or if beverage companies go towards refillable packaging, like was very, very prevalent, still to some degree, but not as much today. There's this perception of inconvenience, but every time we've executed it in these times, the results are a complete inverse of that, and people feel exceptionally connected to that product, that brand, that retailer, and want more, and want to feel that overall purpose.
Yeah, so thank you. Now, Daniel, I have a question for you, specifically for you. New technologies actually create new demand for consumers that cannot be satisfied by the traditional function of retailer and manufacturers. For example, consumers want to be connected, and here comes Facebook. Consumer want to be on mobile, and here comes Uber. Consumers want to share and collaborate, and then we have Airbnb. So basically, in fact, 8 out of 10 biggest companies that were established after 1999 were digital platforms. Yeah. So Daniel, Alibaba is a multi-sided e-commerce platform, right? So my question to you is that what new value does platform or other innovative business models bring to the consumers as well as manufacturers and retailers offline?
Well, first of all, actually today Alibaba, we don't position ourselves as an e-commerce platform. We position ourselves as a data platform, but e-commerce just a very strong use case to generate data. Then we use the data generate on the e-commerce platform, and and then we find value from the data, and we refuel the ecosystem in the e-commerce platform. Same story in finance, same story in logistics, and we believe that all of these things are the strong use case to generate data and use data. So, but again, when we look at the changing, the data technology development, I would say today actually today what we always say that today we cannot just separate online and offline. Just take examples. You said that a shopping mall, and people love to go there because it's sort of experience. But today, when people go to a shopping mall, when they walk, at the same time they are online. Absolutely. They are connected. Mm-hmm. So it's all about how to use the technology, data technology, as a tool, as a service to make the experience better. For example, in China, what we do with our shopping mall partner on the ground is how to do the in-store navigation, because in China, I don't know what happened in Middle East, but China, the shopping mall very big, huge architecture, 1 million square feet. People get lost when they go to the shopping mall, so they cannot easily find a store. And also we do some exercise to enable people to easily find their car in the car parks, because people always get lost, and when they go to the shopping mall, they park and they go to the restaurant and go to cinema. When they go back, they are in trouble. I think some people get the same experience. So how to use the technology to give people a better experience, but it's not. We cannot separate this. The online experience, this offline experience. It's a seamless experience. And for the physical products, actually today what we also look at is that how can create this use the data technology to give people a totally different experience. For example, when you want to buy some beverage, like that we said at the beginning, and one possibility is that you can order and deliver to your home. Then that's easy. But the other thing is why not you can order and deliver to your next stop, and by use the inventory close enough to your location. So, but at the back end, it should be a network-based, and the inventory management. It's not managed by distributors. If by distributors, it's not from brand perspective. It cannot have a big picture of the every single bottle of wine, bottle of beers, where they are. But today it's possible. So that's why in China, what we do is that we help the brand partner to upgrade their system, to build up, we call it network-based. It's not a tree-based, because traditionally we view the distribution channel as a tree. At the top is a manufacturer. They identify a lot of partners as distributors. They distribute the product to them and have a very good commercial terms. Then sub-distribute. Then goes to retailer. Then goes to consumer. But now, I think e-tailer, retailer, everybody come together and finally will become one role. But from brand perspective, by build up this network-based distribution channel and end-to-end closed-loop data-driven, and they can get a lot of insight from the market, from customers.
Excellent. I think our discussion is converging now. Experience and data, use data to enhance customer experience. Yeah.
I just wanted to react to something that was just said, and I think it's very, very true. I mean, not only about Alibaba, but about a lot of the today's retail companies and others. You have, on this side, you have companies that are businesses, and you got technology. Today, if we look at, you got technology companies that are great in what they do, and they found use cases for their technology. So they can sell beer, or they can sell anything. They can sell fashion, they can build cars, they can build a rocket, or whatever they can actually apply the technology to. And they're coming from this end. And now you have businesses that always had the consumer, always has the customer, that know the customer by name, etc. And then over time, it became more of the humanity was taken out of it. And these businesses have to come towards technology. I think today what we're having is technology companies doing business and business companies wondering if we're going to get out of business if we don't get more into the technology space.
So wonderful. So this created an ecosystem, right? So what is the view of this ecosystem? Is the data customer information, and companies, offline or online, they use this information to create better customer experience. Now, one question specific is about the supply chain kind of transparency. Consumers are empowered, and they not only want real-time information about product and services, but they want to know something about the supply chain transparency, because they want to trust. Do you have anything to say about this, on the supply side information?
First, I want to know if Daniel's app can help us find our way around this convention center. If it can help us find our way to the car that's lost. I've needed you a couple of times today. We have an item that we just are about to launch in February. It's a private brand T-shirt, and we sell it for $3.88 US. And the cotton is traceable to the Mississippi River Valley. 50% of the energy used to create that T-shirt is renewable, and 40% of the water has been reused, and we sell it for $3.88. I think the way to think about the supply chain is holistically, and to be a systems thinker as it relates to it, and think about all the inputs as well as the outputs all the way through to, can that T-shirt be recycled and go through another loop all the way on the other side. So one of the things that's important to do is to teach the leaders that we have today to think through the entire system and not sub-optimize for one piece.
Yes, I will complement that by saying that supply chain traceability in food and beverage has been in existence for a long time. And it evolves and it gets better with technology, obviously, but it has been in place for a long time. Both under law, but also under the obligation that you have to have perfect, safe products to the consumers. And if you have an accident, you have to trace it quickly. So most large and reputable companies in the world have that in place. Now the question is whether the question from the citizens, what you call consumers, is to make that transparent to them. And there is a lot of science and a lot of, a chain is a long thing. And it is difficult to compact that in a simple story. But that's, in our case, where we work on how can you make that, and that is what technology allows, because with a very simple code on your bottle, you can start to make part of your supply chain and the see-through transparent. That is what Heineken is currently working on. And that is what technology allows to make that last jump from your own server and your own people in an incomprehensible ERP system, and to make that into a consumer style story that is clear and exciting. Because after all, we talk a lot about shopping experience, but it's all about the liberation of dopamine, right? And if you take that out of the process, you won't have a lot of shoppers around. And I know that some categories are less prone to liberate dopamine than others, but it's the art of marketing for many, many decades to try to, out of every category, to make people feel good about what they buy. And I think the jump of going brick and mortar to going online is still about the same story. It's to get the people excited about your products.
I just want to echo some of the things that were said in transparency here, is that if you look at some big macro trends today, a lot of major product companies are starting to move to smart labeling, which allows consumers to very easily understand what is really in that product. Also, and from a recycling perspective, where to recycle that product. So there is this big trend coming where consumers are asking this. I think there's a challenge, as you said, in too much information, because these are tremendously complex supply chains. So I think the key question is, how do you simplify and tell consumers what they want to know, but also to be transparent in the things that we may perceive they don't want to know, and not hide, and be in some degree vulnerable. I think a lot of large organizations, if you go back decades, are sort of black boxes from a consumer point of view. And it's, please like our product, but please don't ask us how it comes to be. And what we've seen is when, especially large consumer product companies, think like in the cosmetic space where there's all these chemicals that consumers don't understand, the more the company becomes somewhat vulnerable and says, these are the challenges, these are what we're working on, consumers tend to award them in very big ways. We've seen, just to give a very tactile example, when we did some work with L'Oreal at Walmart, and when they started promoting on their shelf space, did you know a big percentage of our packaging ends up in the ocean? People ended up buying more of that product than the other. And that's basically saying we have a big issue, we're a big part of it, and just acknowledging that, which is a very risky thing if you think about it in a boardroom, who would want to put that out there, actually directly rewarded them in the classic method, which is sell-through increase, market share increase.
One of the insight companies that we work with that looks across the internet has identified this trend that the words trust and transparency are going together, certainly as it relates to commerce, in an increasing fashion. I think 23% of the time the word product trust was mentioned, transparency was with it, or something like that. I think the two go hand in hand, and that's really important to understand. Stage one is transparency. Everybody wants to know everything. And stage two that goes right on the heels of it is they have high expectations and they want to trust you. So this societal pressure to improve how products are sourced ethically, sustainably, is only going to increase as transparency increases. And no one's can stop transparency even if you tried.
Yeah. Excellent. Now, my next question is that the future of retail. Yeah, I think we touched upon a lot of this question. So basically, recently we heard the words experiential consumption as well as contextual consumption. So basically, it means that consumers are no longer satisfied of getting a high-quality product. They want emotion, they want experience, they want trust, and they want a solution. That is why, especially on the mobile front, we see OpenTable and Uber get in touch with each other, form a partner. So when consumers make a reservation on OpenTable, and 30 minutes before the reservation, Uber is going to pop up and ask, do you need a taxi? So basically, like you said, now all those platforms, they are data company because they have the information to figure out what consumers is trying to solve, and then they come up with a product or service to satisfy that experience. So now we also have very new technologies such as AR, VR. I know, like Dan and Alain, you are not only retailers, but also you are investors. So in your views, what will be the future of retailing in the next 3 or 5 years, if we say through the future?
Well, I think that it's going to be all about enhancing the experience. But enhancing the experience does not mean that this can happen outside of technology. And I think for quite some time now, we're looking at technology and retail as if they were two opposite things. In reality, the way I see it is that, one example I always give: if you are to build a building today, would you think not to have MEP in it? I mean, running water and AC and stuff. No. 100 years ago, you may have built, or 150 years ago, you may have built a building without running water in it. And it's the same. Today, technology, the digital dimension is fully integrated, cannot but only be fully integrated in the business. This being said, all what you're talking about, about new technology, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and so on and so forth, are actually fantastic tools to do better business. To do better business in store and to do better business outside of the store. The store is going to become also a showroom. Today, the mall is a showroom, but also the store is a showroom. So if the mall is great, the mall cannot be a showroom without every store being actually up to a certain standard. So a lot of retailing is going to be about showrooming, and people will decide where they want to buy it. I mean, if they're buying his bottle of Heineken in Walmart or in Carrefour or on Alibaba, as long as he's selling it, that's fine. People want experience, and that experience today, more than ever before, can actually become a reality because of technology. But also, people want to feel the product. And this is why we're doing in-store today, for example, a lot of producing products. Producing chocolate in store, producing beverages in store, baking cakes in store, baking bread, and so on and so forth. This experience, this sensorial experience is also very important. So we're investing in a lot of technology that we think we can leverage, and also they can leverage the brick and mortar as well in order to produce technology that's even better and more effective.
I would say in the future, I think the online, offline, the retail, the format will be highly integrated. Inventory will be shared, and membership will be integrated online, offline, and no matter online or offline, every single payment will be e-payment. So that means no matter it's a store, as a physical store, people just walk in and buy, and from a retailer perspective, you can get every single customer data from this payment, from this purchase. So it's not relevant to this online sales and offline sales. If people place an electronic order on your tablet in the store associate, if you pay via the e-wallet, then it's a electronic order, so it's online. But people can still show up in a physical store for experience, for coaching, for example. And so the other thing is that for the physical store, and the function of the physical store will partially change. And this still a store is a space for experience, but could be a location like a tiny fulfillment center, could be a service center. A store could be a service center. So again, at the back end, to change the function of a particular store is easy, but the most important thing is to change the entire system to support the functioning of each store, and to ensure to generate the seamless experience to the customers.
Great. My last question is about sustainability. So what is the number one sustainability issue your company is addressing, and what are the long-term solutions? So for sure, can we start with Heineken?
Well, that's very sector-specific. Our number one sustainability issue is alcohol abuse for our industry, and that's very peculiar to our industry, and it's and that's also an evolving. It's an evolving matter. How can a producer play its role in combating or preventing abusive alcohol consumption? It goes through information, obviously, but it also goes through part of education and how you do your marketing, responsible marketing, putting your money where your mouth is, i.e. we spend 10% of our budgets to make the point of when you drive, you never drink, as an example. And we wouldn't have done that 10 years. And in 10 years' time, we might do other things. But sustainability for us, it's that. We are in existence for 150 years. Beer has been around for a very, very long time. We hope it will be around for a long time, but the sustainability of the whole affair is definitely there, specific to our sector. Then next to that, we share with other actors in the value chain our footprint on the planet, which is equally important. We consume a lot of water. After all, beer is an agricultural product. The sustainability of the way our raw materials are sourced is increasingly important. So we devote a lot of attention to water usage, but also water conservation, sustainable agriculture, local sourcing in Africa. Those are all themes that are concrete and for today. And often you see that they go hand in hand with good business. And then the last mile is obviously carbon footprint, but that we share all around the table, and it touches, again, agriculture as well as manufacturing, distribution, logistics, retailing. If you look in our sector, we use a lot of cooling, fridges, but you are using even more fridges than I do. The way you use and the technology you use in these fridges has a huge impact on their carbon footprint. So collaboration with our retailers, the way we use that technology when we set out these coolers in the market, and we have on our own already millions, this is an important thing that we have to work on daily to improve our sustainability footprint going forward.
I'll mention the biggest one last, but in the area of energy and carbon, we're currently supplied by 25% renewables. We've set a target of getting to 50% by 2025. Energy is a big issue. Waste is the second one. We've got several targets by market to get to 100% elimination of waste. We've made good progress against our objectives there, but the big one is the supply chain. It is, how do we work with our suppliers, branded, private brand, to make everything that we sell a little more sustainable all the time, whether it's the way our suppliers treat energy or the way they package. Our early estimates were that about 8% of our footprint related to the assets that we own, 92% is through the supply chain. So our ability to influence that supply chain is the biggest opportunity that we have and the biggest challenge that we have.
The way we look at it is twofold. There is the sustainability of the business, and there is the sustainability of the environment we live in. So we are in 14 different industries, but there are common threads. There are the sustainability of the environment we live in. So how do we make sure that we use less energy? We make sure that we are actually more sustainable in how we source and all of what has been talked about, and that is something that's extremely important to us. So one of our businesses, actually, we develop and operate ski slopes, indoor ski slopes. So this ski slope in Dubai, Ski Dubai, is ours. And people always jump. This is, how do you cool it? Well, we cooled it once, and it's cooled since because perfectly isolated. And it spends now electricity as much as the Hilton across the street here spends. So in reality, technology, investing in technology, is something that helps us to actually be continuously more sustainable. Investing in technology today is the cheapest ever. Sorry, not in technology, in sustainability and in making sure that you're using less energy and less is actually the cheapest ever. And that's something that we continue to do. That's very important. It's critical for us to use less resources and to be at the end of the day net positive. And that is something, that's a commitment that you have made, that we need to give back more than we actually consume. I think it's critical for every organization to do that. But as critical as that is the sustainability of the business. And in today's world, the sustainability of the business is to make sure that our team members understand the world they live in, that they understand these people, and that these people understand us. And we live in a world where we need a lot of translation. Today, I think more than ever, we need translation. We need to understand. The biggest, I think, one of the most important challenges that you described was how do you actually change the culture and how people understand that technology is an enabler for them, but they need to understand technology. So translation is something that is critical to sustainability of our businesses, because very soon, with artificial intelligence, with all the technology we spoke about, people feel that they're getting out of business, which is not true. They're going to be doing something else differently, and this is actually something that they'll be able to use in order to do better business on the long term.
Yeah, talking about sustainability, I would say the the biggest risk we have today about sustainability is disruption, disruptive technology, and disruptive business model. And I just give you one example. 4 years ago, at that time, everybody talked about mobile internet coming. And we also talk about this, but we never dreamed that it's coming so fast. And overnight, the smartphone with very high 1 year with very high penetration in China. So we were very strong on PC e-commerce platform. But how to meet the demand, how to react to the fast changing to the mobile internet. So we invest a lot to construct our leading commerce mobile app. And now today we are very proud to say that we are the largest mobile commerce platform in the world. But if you look back, actually the process is very tough. If we cannot change fast, and we will be killed by this new technology. So today, I always ask my team one question: what's the next entry point of internet? And now it's mobile, but what's the next? Next one is coming soon. So it's about IoT, it's about smart thing, it's about we can have a lot of answer, but we have to change fast to think about if we won't be killed by new technology, then we should kill ourselves using new technology.
So our entire business revolves around making, whether it's retailers, consumer product companies, cities, and so on, more sustainable. So for us, the challenge is less an internal one and much more an external one. And I think if we take something simple like packaging, because I think a lot of folks around the table here are involved directly or indirectly in packaging. One of the big challenges, I think, in sustainability right now is making sustainability a synonym to efficiency. A good example of that is if you make sustainability a synonym of efficiency, the answer would be lightweight all your packaging. But there's a challenge there where if I took a beer bottle, let's just start with that. One of the most amazingly sustainable, because you could refill it, is your glass bottle. Then you could go to aluminum. You can recycle that really well. Then you could go to PET, which has recycling opportunity, but just a little less so than aluminum. But the lightest package form of all is none of those. It's a bag, which is entirely non-recyclable. And I think the key challenge here is, for us, is looking at how do you convince partners, again, whether it's these different stakeholders, to not just look at sustainability as an efficiency measure, but think about, if it even costs more to do so, how can you gain tremendous value? So I'll give a concrete case study here. In 2 days, we're making a big press announcement here. So I won't disclose the partners. That'll tune in on Thursday. But it's going to be the world's biggest deployment of ocean plastic in consumer packaging. That's one of the things we're working on. And the interesting thing about ocean plastic, 25% of our plastic ends up in the oceans. It's exceptionally expensive. If you look at it on a cost per kilo basis, procurement people's heads would explode if they saw the cost. And it's also way less capable. You can't be clear. You can't be white. It comes out in a color. Even this brand is sacrificing its iconic white color to go to a different color in its package. But the question to unlock the huge supply chains around ocean plastic was to show this particular large consumer product company how that would then drive more sales, how that would be a better investment than a fancy celebrity attached to the product. And that, I think, is critical because right now, the first phase of sustainability was let's make it a synonym to operations being more efficient. And it is. If we, cut our power consumption, that is an efficiency. That is synonym to that's synonym to sustainability, like the ski slope being as energy efficient as a hotel.
A small one.
Right. Even better. Even better. I was actually just recently there. It's beautiful, absolutely amazing. But then the question is, how do you leverage what would be perceived in that context as sustainable sacrifice and make it win at the normal playing field? Because that's how you then manifest big change that stays.
Wonderful. So we have really covered a lot. Now we would like to welcome questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Is there a mic?
Can you please tell your name and your company?
Yeah, hi, I'm Peter. I work for Philips, so it's about data, the question. So at Philips we use data to keep people healthy, to make them healthier. So the question is to both Daniel and Doug. So you both talked a lot about data, and it's very much about the way how to enable the selling process, do marketing, so understand and anticipate demand better. So how do you see going forward data also enabling customized products? So really having people have their individual answers to their problems. So how do you see that moving forward?
Well, actually, this is a very good question. 6-8 years ago, when we talk about the future of e-commerce, we said that it's not talking about the C2C or B2C, it's talk about C2B. We are a true believer of C2B, the consumer to business, consumer driven to business. But I would say today, when actually in certain industry, actually this is now already is very possible. And but why I think the key thing in this C2B is not about for sure you should get the real-time consumer data, but key thing again I would say is about supply chain. So can you get your supply chain soft enough and flexible enough to meet the real demand? So it's all about the changing of the entire operation in terms of the supply chain optimization. So if that is the case, I think C2B, the consumer data-driven and tailor-made products is possible.
Just imagine what 3D printing is going to enable. But in the meantime, you know, we had a push system where we predicted what customers were going to buy by store location, and markdowns create a lot of friction in the system. And as things change, the assortment's carried in fewer places. It may enable us to pass on some of the savings through a more efficient system to enable customers to choose colors and to do other things. I think of apparel in particular as an emerging opportunity.
My name is John Ackerley. We're trying to revolutionize the wood stove and computerize it. My question is, in terms of sustainability, you all, there's a lot of ways to become sustainable, but in my mind, one of the most important ones is to reduce consumption, reduce consumer consumption. And I was wondering if any of you, if any of your models speak to that.
Building things that last comes to mind. And I think in our business and in that of competition in the past, there have been times where we have lowered the standard of fit for purpose to hit a price point. And we need to be very cautious and more mindful about doing that going forward. Value even more than price, so that things can be passed on. We have been expecting for some time that the sharing economy would apply itself more to consumer goods. You know, think of car seats and strollers and things like that. That may still happen, and I would like to see our company and others do some testing as it relates to that. But the bottom line is, let's build things that you can pass down.
I think there's also big trends in the concept of repairing. Patagonia is a great example that has launched systems now where they will repair their product indefinitely and their competitor's product. So but if you move to this hyper-durable idea of things to last, which I think is absolutely the right answer, then the question is, what's the business model? So then it's a question of, is it a service-based model? Is it a lease-based model? But that's a very exciting platform. And there is a lot of business to it. I don't think that would necessarily hurt the bottom line. It just would transpose it in some degree.
I think in a lot of what we do, we tackle this issue. But I think there are different ways, because consumption is not just in buying products. It's in buying products, in how you build things, in actually what it demands to keep them on. And also there is a lot of retail impact that's actually coming, and the big carbon footprint coming also through transportation. So for example, we push people in our shopping malls to come to the shopping malls not using their cars. We do similar to what Uber has done with OpenTable. We did it with the local Dubai-based Uber, which is Careem, to actually send cars to bring people in order for them not to have to use their own cars, and make sure that this is something that's actually not necessary. We link our shopping malls through public transportation in order to reduce the need for parking spaces and reduce the need for people to use and so on and so forth. So there is a lot that is not just related to the product itself, but all the ecosystem that happens around the product, where actually there is a lot of impact of consumption that actually we deal with.
I think your question has a philosophical kind of content to it. It is to what physical extent can a human being move stuff around and consume? You have large parts of the world that still aspire to buy more things, of having more services. Yet in the Western world, in some places we kind of reach saturation, and our economic model is built on growth. And I think nobody has the response how to build a world where people will be happy, prosperous, without growth. So the lead driver that companies, and I think if you play the game, you have to play the game, but you have to look for growth. And you make mistakes along the way. I mean, you program your products to be obsolete after 2 years, and they might last for 3 years. German cars, they can last for 10 years. Why do you replace them after 3 or 4 years? You can use them for 5 or 6 years. After the crisis of 2008, everybody did that in Europe. It was a catastrophe for the car industry. So you have to, to be very careful to what you wish for. But I think a world with, a better usage of our resources is relying at most on evolving technology, and the best, I suppose, is still to come. But on the other side, there are a lot of things we don't know. And I think we have to accept that we don't know. But we should not wish proactively to kind of having an invented world where there would be no growth, because I think a lot of humanity still aspire to have a better life. And for those who have already a better life, we better address our own problems without disrupting the whole planet also. I take a little bit of contrarian view on the growth issue.
I have a few comments. I would say whether it should be reduced consumption or encourage consumption, it's all about, is it the real demand of the customers? If it's a real demand, and you should encourage, but if it's not, you should reduce. But having said that, in most cases, most of customers are not aware of what they really want. And actually, how to enable the customers to to enjoy a fun of discovery, to enjoy fun, to exceed their expectation. I think that's the job we have to do. And again, and with artificial intelligence and so on and so forth, new technology, I would say we will understand human being better, to give them the fun of discovery they never dream of, but from their heart, maybe they really want this.
Great, yeah. If we have one sentence as a takeaway, yeah, what that sentence will be? One sentence takeaway for the audience. Yeah. Do we need time to think about it?
Be positive.
The internet and technology are being hired to do everything that shoppers don't actually want to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. That's great. Yeah. Alan?
I think that our role, beyond what we do, is to create great moments for people. We have to become the ones that create great moments for everyone every day.
Every company is going to be the internet company. And every company should be equipped by data.
I think the biggest is this then the transformation of all these models of whether it's packaging, retail, and so on. It's if we can make it human-centric and make the humans, the people involved, feel integral to a part of it versus just responding to it, then we'll end up being rewarded.
We might be afraid sometimes, but just embrace it and accept that you don't know everything about it, and that it is a discovery route. But I think there is much more opportunity than downsides.
Great, very philosophical, and lots of things for us to chew on. Now that adds a powerful conclusion to this session. So please join me and give a round of applause to the panelists.